What's up, fellas? It's been a while.
Yo,
What's going on, bro?
doing
I'm
well.
good, man. I'm good. How are you guys been?
Doing
Life.
all right.
Yeah, man.
70 degrees here in Pittsburgh, so it's a great stretch of time.
Yeah, it's not bad here in Raleigh. It was like 70, almost 70 today too. I don't know what
I,
it's like where you are, Cardell, but
I don't know how it's 70 in Pittsburgh and 50 here in Delaware, but sure.
It's better. That's all.
anyways, listeners, you guys did not come in to tune in to hear us talk about the weather. Welcome back to the New Block Nerds podcast. I'm your host, Chris, aka Prince, with my brother Cardell here, and our resident Avatar fanatic, Mike. We are here to talk all things Avatar The Last Airbender, the Netflix live action. Guys, I have been this series was so like I felt like hyped up, at least in our friend group. Like we were all looking forward to this. Like the day that they announced that they were even thinking about doing something like this. We've been talking about this for what feels like years. It's finally here. It's finally dropped. 8 episodes. So before we get into all the details, and I'm sure we'll talk about this for God knows how long, I really just want to get y'all's just immediate reaction, just overall feel what you guys thought about the series, and then we'll get into some details.
Should we
So
do should we do our scores out of 10? Like overall reaction score?
you want to do that at the beginning? We could do that. We could do that now if you want.
I
And
don't
then
know
do
if I don't know if I've figured out a score for it yet.
All right, we'll do it at the end then. After all the
Okay.
comments have
Yeah.
been said.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. All right. So Mike,
I
go ahead.
think
What do you got?
that I will summarize it by saying it was good enough. It certainly wasn't great. I'm debating if I'd say it had really good moments. I think all of the problems I have with it are so easily fixable. But there were a number of problems I have with it. I think it was good enough. I don't understand how the problems that occurred. And yeah, that's my shortest version. I'm sure we'll get into some of the nitty-gritty, but
Cardell?
I'll let you go first, Chris.
All right. Well, y'all forgive me. I'm still kind of getting over something here my son gave me, but Mike, I kind of agree with you. I think it it was decent. Wasn't great. Definitely wasn't awful. Um and just to be clear, if listeners, if you guys came here for like a complete bitch fest about the series, I don't think this is what that's gonna be. There were definitely some things that didn't work for me, but by no measure did I walk away with this thinking I had completely wasted my time like I did with the Yu Yu Hakusho live action. This is not that. Like let's be clear about that off rip. But yeah, I would say overall, Mike, I agree with you. Decent. Didn't wow me. Didn't I wouldn't say that it really disappointed me either, because I don't really know what I was expecting. I was kind of going in trying to be fair and trying to like give the showrunners a little bit of grace. Given that I don't think anytime you adapt something, it's always going to be not as good as the original, right? Whether that's comics or animated live action or remake of another movie or something like that. 9 times out of 10, it's tough to hit that mark. But yeah, decent. I was cool with it. I enjoyed it. Cardell?
I thought it was decent, bordering on good, which incredibly frustrated me due to seeing how the same company just ruined my favorite anime in a live action remake. Also seeing that they obviously felt like they were more invested in this one than they were Yu Yu Hakusho.
Mm-hmm.
easily based off the number of episodes, based off the fact that they didn't smash the entire 3 seasons into 5 episodes like they did with the Yu Hakusho. So I was like, okay, they have a plan here. They're going to do each of the books, and they're going to give them the opportunity to fix some of the things that Mike, like I know you're probably going to address here shortly, but some of the issues that you might have had, they can go back to the drawing board and fix those for season 2 and season 3. Where Yu Yu Hakusho was one and done, rushed, 70 episodes compressed into 5 hours,
Mm-hmm.
3 arcs running concurrently, and then just no. So I felt like the fact that they had more invested and spent more time, and actually, despite the creators walking away, which I'm sure you'll comment on as well, but it felt like they at least try to invest in stick more in follow a lot more of the context that they had from the original source material than anything I saw with the Yu Yu Hakusho one.
So you're definitely not still bitter about how they handled Yu Yu Hakusho. That's what I'm gathering.
Yeah, you about to get ended like the Airbenders, bro. You better stop playing with them.
Look, I love Yu Yu Hakusho too, and I agree with everything you said. It seems to me that whatever numbers they were looking at Netflix in the boardroom, honestly, the way that they approach Yu Yu Hakusho, and this is not a Yu Yu Hakusho pod, I don't want to get too bogged down on this comparison, but how they handled it, you could tell that they just did not care. And it was just like, if you don't care, then
Don't do it.
What's the point of wasting the money? Like,
Right.
are you guys washing money over there? What's going on? Because like
Yep.
there was clearly no one who was making that, who was involved in making it, who signed the checks for that, thought that it was going to be worth a damn. So why bother? It's like going to the grocery store buying a bunch of shit that you're not going to eat. It's just why? It's a waste of time and money.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, all that being said, going to Avatar, I know they cut out some stuff, right? I want to ask you guys what you guys thought about the 8-episode structure. Me personally, I would have loved to see them do 10 episodes, three seasons of 10 episodes each, because you got what, 20 episodes in book 1, right? From the original
I think 22.
22, okay. But if you're in there, what, 22 minutes each, if you're going to condense it into one season of 8 or 10 episodes, you could have taken those 22 episodes and done maybe two per episode, or tried to merge some of the storylines 2 per episode. If you're making 40 to 50 minute episodes on Netflix, I think I didn't see the reason why they felt the need to cut it down to 8, considering some of the things they cut out and some of the pacing seemed a little rushed at times. And then on the other hand, I felt like there were some things that they kind of lingered on that they maybe didn't need to. So to me, like and I saw somewhere someone had a breakdown of it where it was like the actual runtime of all 8 live action episodes is actually longer than the 22 book 1 episodes. So it's like,
Right.
all right, so you cut out stuff,
And
added
somehow
some bullshit in, ended up being longer, but you cut out some of the logic is not logicking there from like a showrunner standpoint. So I want to ask you guys what you guys thought about like the 8-episode structure, and like if you guys were like how you guys felt about like the pacing of it all.
Well, I'll say I was wrong already. It's 20 episodes for season 1, 20 for season 2, and 21 for season 3. I just looked it up, so you were right. I was.
So it could have been perfect. They could have just done 2 episodes per every episode, merged the storylines where it was applicable, where it made sense. Like if you're in the Southern Air Temple and then the Northern Water Tribe in 2 episodes, and you can't combine them, right? But you guys get what I'm saying.
This is going to come up for every talking point. I think that I would have loved to have. I would always want more. So, but they could have made this work with 8 episodes, definitely, because most of the episodes were 45 minutes to 50 minutes long, and they had such good. You already said this. They had such good pace in certain parts, and then they lingered in the most ridiculous ways in other parts. And it's like, I don't know why we spent 2.5 episodes in Omashu where they tried to converge like 3 different plot points, And at first I was like, honestly, this works. Like, and there were a number of things in the season where you're like, are they doing this already? This is a season 2 thing, but all right, like I can see it kind of. And then we just had a whole nother episode of Umashu, and I'm like, why are we still here? Like, I feel like it was moving quickly. Like episode 1, I was like, all right, cool. It was fine, like fine enough start. Episode 2, I was like, I'm kind of getting better. Episode 3, I was like, all right. And then episode 4, it was just like brick wall, just dropped off a cliff. And episode 5 was worse. And then episode 6 was kind of cool. So to answer your question, I would have liked 10 episodes. It's an even number. Well, 8's an even number too. I think it's a better number where they could have done just a little bit more. I think the argument that they'd make is, well, what I would hope is that they were trying to save as much money as possible in season 1 to see how many people would actually watch it. Because they can always expand seasons 2 and 3. I think they're going to sink the money into the project regardless. But it's one of the many things. It's so fixable. I don't know why they did what they did.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, I think they like. I think it is good enough for them to get a season 2. Like, I think it's received well enough that like they're going to get a season 2, and I think they're going to take note of a lot of the things that like a lot of the people in the fandom have been talking about that they didn't like. And even like you said, for budget and even like episode length and or the number of episodes, I should say. I think they'll keep that in mind moving forward. The only issue is, and I don't want to jump around too much, is they're running into like they're going to run into a similar issue that like Stranger Things runs into, where if they're doing a season 2, they need to start shooting it now, because with child actors, especially the kid who plays Aang, he's gonna grow.
His voice dropped 3 octaves already.
Right, so like you're gonna need to start churning this out fairly quickly. Otherwise, you're gonna have season 1 Aang, who is 12, and you're gonna have to explain to us why he's 6'3" now or something.
Yeah.
And it's not going to make any sense.
And that's a good point to bring up, because, like you said, with child actors, you don't know how big they're going to grow, right? Like, his parents could both be 5'5", and he could be the one person in his family that ends up being 6'8", and he grows 16 inches over the summer. You know what I mean? So it's like, you do kind of have to move at a quicker pace to account for the fact that you don't want this person to age out of this role, or then you got to recast or something like that if it's too extreme. Well, if he hits puberty early and starts getting a ton of facial hair.
See, that's the thing. I'm like, and I don't want to speak over you, like Cardell getting to say what you thought about the episode length, but again, like, it's only 3 seasons, right? So they should be able to do this quickly enough. I think they just have to commit now. And even if the ratings aren't high enough, I think at this point, like, they have seen the massive amount of viewership that people will watch it. I don't think any true Avatar fan has the self-control not to watch even a season 2 of it, because they just want to see it. I mean, there's some cool parts that, like, even if like us as Yu Yu Hakusho fans, we saw the preview and went, we want to believe, and even if things go wrong, we want to, like, hey, I want to see Toph Beifong in the flesh. I want to see if they get
gotta see Toph,
the Boulder, and then we'll go, oh, season 2 sucked too, but I kind of want to see that Agni Kai in real life, in live action. See there's a crazy cool, I don't have the name of it in front of me. There's a crazy good fan made live action Zuko versus Azula from a few years ago. Y'all should YouTube that. Anyone watching too.
Okay.
So it's like, if some of those scenes looked all right, and I don't want to jump around too much. We can get into plenty here, but I think Netflix can see there will be enough viewership. So they just need to commit and just shoot all the way through, just like they're doing with James Cameron's Avatar. No pun intended. Still want to fight you, James. But they never stop shooting. They've been shooting since Way of Water, and they're just continuing on. and he's already writing screenplays for like 4 and 5. So
That's a dub, though. I'm not seeing none of that.
But yeah, no, I mean, like, no, I think that's the smart play, right? I think, and maybe that's, and you can tell like they really put money behind this because I mean,
Yeah,
it looks amazing.
yeah. From everything
It
from the
looks
costumes
amazing.
to the set design. Because look, I can tell, and I hate to keep going back to this, but I can tell you how I can show that like, okay, the budget wasn't where it needed to be.
Right.
The costumes was cheap. The wigs were rank.
The wig. Hey, I'll never get over that wig.
I'm never gonna get over that terrible wig they had him wearing, and it just got messier. They didn't even like fix it between scenes; it just got messier throughout the movie.
whose
But
wig are we talking about? Karama's?
You
yes,
know whose wig we're talking
you know
about.
whose wig we're
I
talking about.
mean, we should make a tier list of worst wigs in that live action because we're looking at Hiei, we're looking at Karama, Yoko Karama, we're looking at Botan. I mean, it's a lot.
I mean, and like people used to make fun of like the Game of Thrones wigs in like season 1 before like the show really
Haters.
popped off, but nah, bro, it ain't like that.
Yeah.
It ain't
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
But this show did have like, you could tell that they were like, okay, we really want to get, like, we want the viewers to be invested in this. We want to bring them into this world. And you could tell, like, the attention to detail on a lot of the stuff, especially for me, like the costume design was on point for everybody. And you have a bunch of different costumes to do. You got Fire Nation guards, you got Fire Nation royalty, you've got, Aang, you've got the waterbenders from the North and Southern tribes, you've got all the different people in the Earth kingdoms, right? So it just frustrates me that we didn't get this with Yu Hakusho. None of this investment. They were just like, all right, somebody wants it.
But I think again, I think the creators walking away notwithstanding, I think it shows that Netflix really took great care in making sure that the viewers were transported into the world of Avatar. Right?
Yeah.
Like when you're watching this, it's not like, oh, this looks like a place on our Earth. Like all the sets look like something straight out of the cartoon.
Yeah.
I mean, like I remember we were talking about this, amongst ourselves before, when the trailer came out, when we got that shot of Amashu, and I was like, Amashu looks amazing. Amashu looks great. Like, I mean, you could take a screenshot from the cartoon, and it's almost shot for shot. It's almost shot for shot. Kind of switching gears here. I want to talk about one thing that they did change, like from the rip. Actually showing the genocide of the air nomads. Now, I want to get y'all's opinion on this. Me personally, I could have done without it. I understand why they did it. I think, and this is the theory, I think they wanted to showcase early on that, like, hey, yeah, this is based on a cartoon, but we're going to edge it up a little bit, right? So we're going to show a little bit more violence and everything like that. But for me, I think the effect of having a genocide, like everyone knowing a genocide happened without seeing it, it's almost, you can almost imagine it or imagine it worse than what it was. But when you show it, there's no more like mystery to be had. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I mean, I kind of liked it. I liked seeing more airbenders fighting.
So did I.
True.
I think they kind of had like the reverse Anakin moment where Gyatso's protecting the little children, but didn't protect them that long. I think one of my biggest issues overall with the show, and I don't want to claim it as my own, this YouTuber I watched named Murphy Napier said this, but I think it's true. So much of the show, there's so much exposition, right? Like unnecessary dialogue.
Yeah.
So at first, as that was starting, I'm like, this is crazy. All right, cool. Like you seeing the female airbender. She's like, go on, Gyatso. She's like fighting like 6 guys at once. And then he's in there fighting Sozin. And then Sozin comes in and has to say out loud for some like unrelated lore debate, you may have beat me on another night, but not the night of the comet. And it's like, I mean, man, like just fire him up literally and be done. Like I didn't need that. That was such a corny line. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
why they added that. And there are a number of moments throughout the entire season where that happens. But I kind of liked showing that. I didn't like the placement in the episode. Like, it felt a little clunky where they dropped it in. I was like, all right, I guess we're doing this now. I think it also created some big question marks, like trying to explain that all of the airbenders showed up for the festival. I'm like, I
Right.
think they
Yeah.
wrote themselves into a corner that way, but whatever.
Yeah, like every airbender on the planet was all in one place at one time.
Right.
Like,
Doesn't
that's
sound. Yeah.
yeah,
It's a
that's
similar issue with
that's
Star Wars with like the Jedi eradication, and now they've since tried to like walk that back. Like, well, maybe a few survived somewhere.
well, yeah,
Maybe.
obviously, like you have an entire galaxy of like these people all over the place. You can't know where every single one of them
Right.
is
It's
located
not
at all
the
times.
census. The airbender census, we got them all.
Right, right. There's some firebender auditor walking through like
Yeah, right.
doing a tally of like all the bodies. Yeah, like
Yikes.
no,
Yeah.
yeah.
Let
So
me
I
ask
mean
you a
that was
question.
go ahead.
I did want to ask a question because we mentioned, some of the changes that have been made in this show opposed to the animated one, and I'm just curious, particularly with Mike, are there any scenes in particular, or any moments that were cut in particular that you feel strongly about?
All right. So, I mean, already now I've got the episode list for the animated series here to organize myself. I could just go off a gut reaction, but I do want to go in order. One, for sure, I can't believe I think the initial finding Aang in the iceberg was really. I was very frustrated with Sokka and Katara's interactions early on. Like, they're just some pure comedy throughout. So like even the initial moment of like Katara doing her water bending on the way to find Aang, and then there was no penguin sledding. Like I think that was a crucial part, which sounds cheesy, but like of showing that he's a dorky kid and he likes to play and all that stuff. And then they just immediately went into like the original intro to the show, like long ago, the four nations were at peace. I'm like, what? Why is Graham given this exposition? There are a number of parts that I thought they missed that I would have liked to see, but I'm okay with not being there for the sake of the story and time. Except by the end of the season, I went, we wasted so much time. So, I mean, I can go through and list a few, but I don't want to dominate this conversation too. I know you guys are calling me the Avatar fanboy because I am, but, I want you guys to be able to talk to. Like, I love the Pirates episode. I understand why they just skipped to Gran had this waterbending scroll. It was like, come on. Or one of the biggest divisions in the animated fan base is the Great Divide. But I love that episode. I think that episode is hilarious for all kinds of reasons.
Yeah.
They say it's filler, but I think it shows Aang trying to come up with a solution for the first time as an avatar, and it cracks me up to see the Sokka versus Katara. I knew that wasn't going to get the live action treatment, but like it seems like some of the places where they tried to do some character development, I understand, but also I'm like, why didn't you just use the source material? So like with Sokka, they like wrote in extra trauma of like, my dad doesn't think I'm a good leader.
Yeah, that I
Yeah.
didn't.
I didn't like that.
I was like,
get behind that. Meanwhile, like on the other side of the coin, Katara is having to relive watching her mom get burned alive. And it's just
fine.
just like Sokka, why are you bitching, bro? Like, what do you have to complain about?
Yeah, and then so they wrote off that whole section of Aang and them meeting Bato, and then Aang hiding the letter and all that junk, and like to me, I mean that's a broader issue of like they kind of changed the whole background of the face stealer, but again, like I've got so much grace and leeway because I go into these kinds of things with so low of expectations that I'm like I can suspend my love for the original show for this version as long as it makes sense. And some of the
Yeah.
decisions just didn't make sense. Like, what's the girl's name with the blind animal that can find any scent anywhere?
Um,
Like,
what's
she
her
was
name?
I'm
fire.
blanking on her
And
name now, but
yeah,
yes,
the
yeah,
animation
Megumi or
of her
something?
creature was awesome.
right.
And but her being introduced was just like, they didn't even have like Katara's necklace. They're like, we need to find the Avatar. You're good at finding stuff. We're the whole freaking Fire Nation, but good thing we found you. I'm like, the whole thing is that she had this creature tamed. Anyways, how
Yeah,
about
yeah,
you?
and
How about you guys?
it's it's Mike, to your point, it's tough because like like some of those things are going to get cut out, but like to your point, like I think as long as it makes sense, and I think like I like when I'm watching this show, I'm constantly watching things be different, and I'm like, okay, remember this is not the cartoon. Don't don't watch it with those kind of rose tinted glasses on because everything's going to look like shit if you're comparing it to something that's in many people's opinion is a masterpiece, right? It's just like it's like when you went to go see like the live action Lion King remake. It's just like, okay, obviously this cannot it's impossible to top the original. It's not going to happen. But you watch it because you're a fan of the original. It's just like you just like you said, you have to give the creators of this live action show a little bit of grace because it's like they want to do their own thing and
And they
some things they
should.
change and like some things they
Yeah.
change are going to hit and some they're not and they don't know what's going to hit and what's not before they do it, but
They should have known, bro. Like, listen, you
some
guys keep
stuff.
bringing up
Some
Yu
stuff
Yu
you should know.
Hakusho, so I get One Piece, card to bring up. The whole vision behind the One Piece live action, they're not doing 15 seasons of this. They don't have time or money.
right.
It's to bring a Western audience to One Piece, and it accomplished that. So
Yep.
they've already accomplished their goal. I am not sure if the purpose of this is to bring new fans to Avatar or not. It's already a massive fan base. Seems like, I mean, with 3 seasons, you just want to do it all the way through, anyways. But like, there's just a number of places where you go, oh, okay, like you want them to change it. Like Lion King, I'm glad you brought that up. The live action Lion King kind of sucked because it was verbatim the original movie. You're like, well, why would I watch this less colorful,
But
less exciting?
it
No
just
one's
didn't
like,
have the same
man,
like heart to it, like you
Yeah.
can't.
you're like, I need more grit to the Lion King. Like he's singing a song about
Right.
can't wait till his dad dies to be king. Come on, you know? Whereas like with this, I'm like, yeah, like show me some variation, show me some like expounding. And like if you Legend of Korra as a sequel series is darker, and then the Kyoshi novels and Yang Chen, there's some dark stuff in those novels. Like they age it up and they show you some of that stuff. So I like that immediately we see, Sozin burn that guy alive. I'm like, all right, because that's the reality of what we're talking about. Like,
Right.
Right.
I like it, but like they didn't. I understand they can write it all in. They can weave these storylines together. They made a cave of two lovers about siblings. God help us
Yeah.
all. They didn't show Aang try to waterbend once. They
Yeah.
didn't. So you're talking about stuff they cut out. They cut out him meeting with the firebending White Lotus man. Like
Mhm.
the whole point is that then he becomes scared to be a firebender. He never wants to firebend. Like,
Yeah.
like, and for
Right.
what? For what? To
Right.
get an extra episode of Boomy being Boomy? Like it just made.
Yeah,
It didn't make sense to me.
and listeners, if you guys have not watched the cartoon, just careful here because we're inevitably going to talk about spoilers for like end game stuff here. But Mike, to your point about the firebender who's in the White Lotus, I I,
Bonjo.
I was very kind of like head scratchy about how they handled Boomy because it seemed that like Boomy had pretty much lost all faith, and if Boomy has lost all faith, then this can't be the same guy who is also part of the White Lotus later on then, right? Because like that just doesn't track for me. Unless him seeing Aang and Aang reinvigorating some kind of fighter spirit in Boomy makes him want to rejoin the White Lotus. I don't know what their membership
Right.
policy is. Like, can you come and go as you please? Is it like the
Yeah.
Night's Watch where it's just like, bro, if you desert, you die kind of thing? I don't know,
Mhm.
right? But like that didn't track well for me.
No.
I was fine with Boomy again. Like, I think cast wise, they did great. Like, I feel like pretty much across the board, like a lot of the people look just like the cartoon versions of them. I think for me, aside from a lot of people are saying the standouts are Prince Zuko and Uncle Iroh. I think aside from that, the kid who plays Sokka is like as close to a live action Sokka as you're gonna get. I mean, he sounds like
Yeah.
he sounds like him, he looks like him, he's got the same kind of like mannerisms. And I think one thing that is like really underrated about his role in this is his comedic timing. His comedic timing was
Mhm.
really on point. Like, I felt like he knew where to come in and break up the seriousness of stuff. Like, it very rarely did I feel like a Sokka joke was overly cheesy. Like, that is Sokka's
Mhm.
character. His jokes are supposed to kind of be just like he's the comedic relief in Team Avatar, but it never felt like it took me out of whatever was going on, if that made sense.
Cardell, you look so pensive. I don't want to keep talking before you get a word in edgewise, man.
No, you're good. It was the thing to me that I thought was interesting was, and you mentioned some of the scenes that I had the biggest issues with them cutting out, like the one with the firebender from the White Lotus and things like that, that play a much more pivotal role in the story later on, especially in character development. But and even though you have to keep this, but you kept cabbages, but you cut that.
You're right.
You know what I'm saying? And you got to keep cabbages, right? You got to keep that. But
Yeah.
Although I'll say, and I'm so glad they got the original voice actor to do that. I feel like it was so forced the way that they did the cat. They did it multiple times, and I just
Yeah.
feel like
yeah,
there were certain parts. Like, I like the guy that did sang Secret Tunnel, but it just felt like such an odd build up to this like weird moment that like it didn't really fit in that scene. But I don't know, man. Like, again, like you said, like they kept certain parts, added certain parts, and then cut what I would say are some crucial ones.
yeah. Like I feel like you cut some of the most pivotal points of the story. Like I don't understand. And again, I'm not a writer. It's not my job. Someone else is going to be tasked with handling this come season 3. But I don't like that's a huge change to like his firebending arc.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like that's a huge change to his arc. And
Yeah.
I maybe it might be things like that that led to the creators deciding, hey, we're going to step away from this because you're changing so many pivotal things that really kind of develop the character in the way that they wrote him, that they imagined him.
Right.
Yeah, and Cardell, to your point, like them cutting out the whole, Aang being afraid to firebend because he hurts Katara in the original series. That character development is tied to Prince Zuko's redemption arc, right? Because Zuko was ultimately the one who teaches Aang how to firebend,
Right.
right? So you couple that with Aang's fear of firebending, and then him having to learn firebending from up until that point his arch nemesis, right? Like,
Right.
you bring it full circle in a way that I feel like they can't do now. So like,
And I
yeah,
think,
he's still going to have his redemption arc, and he's still going to end up becoming part of Team Avatar eventually, but you miss that little piece of like that development for both of those characters that I feel like you can't really go back on now. Which
I
maybe it
think
ends
there
up
are
not being a big
ways.
deal, but we'll see.
Yeah, there are ways, and this is what they merged so many plot points and left so many out. So they brought season 2 stuff in. I like
Mm-hmm.
that they showed Ozai. I like that, I get like building him up in the show, but he's an underwhelming bad guy of all things considered for cartoons and junk. Like, but just revealing him early, they have a really top list actor, and I think they did some of that really well. I think revealing Azula early was good, though I'm a little annoyed with some of the things they had her do. She just seemed a
Yeah.
little whiny.
Yeah, I have
Yeah.
thoughts about that, but I'm gonna let you go. But I have thoughts about about them bringing Azula in this early. But go ahead.
I like the actress. I think she's another one where her voice and like some of her mannerisms work. Like, but when it comes to like the not having the deserter episode from about the firebending master and Aang hurting Katara, they can easily write something in to go, Aang just decides firebending is what killed my people. I'll never use it.
Yeah.
That's a simple enough premise, and you can go with that, and it'll work for this adaptation. But it just doesn't make any sense why you even had to create that scenario. Like it blows my mind, and I don't know exactly where we're pivoting to. I know you want to talk about Azula. I just want to say in general, seeing all of the behind the scenes, like this cast has so much personality, and you see them banter with each other. And I'm just like, why the hell did they not let the cast be themselves more? I will say straight up, I think the worst part of the series, and this is not about you as an actor. I think they wrote your scenes wrong because I know you're going to see this episode. I think Aang was the worst part of the show. I think his acting was atrocious.
Wow.
Yes. I think Zuko was great. I think that Sokka was great. I think that Azula did well. But I think if you hear this kid, Gordon, whatever his name is, in interviews, he is so much, he has such a big smile. He's so giggly. You hear his voice now, and then you hear how he talks in the show, and it sounds like he's trying to be so stoic, like a monk. Oh, well, man, your bending's getting much better, Katara. Oh, well, the monks always said we should. It's like, just let him be a kid. That's the whole point of casting him, is to let him be the goofy side of Aang. If we don't see him do the quintessential Aang dance where he's like, but I can't see that kid doing that now based on what we just saw in season 1. Like, it just seems like they tried to attract the Game of Thrones audience so much that, like, there are a number of parts. Like, my favorite part of the Secret Tunnel episode from season 2 is at the end, Sokka's got the big red mark on his forehead, and Katara goes, "What's wrong with your head?" And the guy comes over and goes, "I think that guy's the Avatar." And then he smacks himself in the head because he's so pissed off. And it's like, no, instead, we're just going to have him go, "Yeah, Dad didn't like me either, but like, hey, we found our way in the dark." So all that said, I just think the actors have so much more potential. I think they casted so well that I think the biggest fix needed is the writers.
I agree with the writers. I have to disagree with you on the one
Aang?
I was disappointed in. I was not disappointed with Aang. I thought some of the dialogue was a little flat. I think, and I hate to say this,
Say it.
I think Katara was the worst one of Team Avatar.
And I agree.
You know why? You know why I say this? Because they almost neutered her down. They almost they watered her character down. Like,
pun intended or no?
Oh yeah, I guess pun intended. No pun intended. But like Katara in the cartoon series, she is so fierce of a character.
Yes.
I never got that from her in her dialogue, in her actions. I mean, like when she waterbends and she's fighting Master Paku in the cartoon version.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm watching that was like my first, well, maybe not my first, I have to go back and look, but like my first inkling of like, oh shit. Like I didn't know like the different creative ways that like waterbenders could get down like this. Because make no mistake, when she was shooting those little ice discs at him, I don't think even she realized it because maybe she was so pissed off. If one of them lands,
those are kill shots,
bro. He's cooked. He's cooked. But like, I feel like, to your point, Mike, like the edginess they tried to bring this show, they put it in the wrong places. Aang is not the person you try to make edgy. you give Katara some of that edge because she's the one who like I feel like Katara in many ways, not to bring up Yu Yu Hakusho again, but like a lot of her power is tied to her emotions in this in a similar way that like Yusuke's is.
Mm-hmm.
When you piss Katara off, she goes ham.
Yep.
And I didn't feel like they let her be pissed off enough in this season, right? And like again, it's another one of those character development things where like you have to establish that now so that things later pay off. Like perfect example, when we get to I think it's either book 2 or book 3, but when Katara and Toph are having tiffs because Katara is being so bossy, right?
Right.
And this is one of my favorite moments in the entire show. Sokka goes to talk to Toph, and he's talking to her about like, yeah, I know she could be pretty bossy, but you got to remember, and I'm paraphrasing here, they both had to grow up so fast. Sokka was like 13, Katara was like 10 when their mom died, right? Their dad goes off to go fight the Fire Nation. Sokka has to become a man, and Katara has to pick up whatever was left behind from both of their parents at home, right? And the beautiful thing about that scene when he's talking to Toph is, he's telling her, I needed that. I needed that structure. I needed someone to like tell me what to do, where to be, blah, 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 blah. And he was like, as weird as it sounds, I barely remember what my mom even looked like. When I close my eyes and think of my mother, Katara's face is the only one I see. You don't get that kind of payoff later on,
right?
If you don't establish bossy Katara at the beginning. And I think they've done her character no favors by not letting her be who she really is.
Well, I think it's another place where, this is stuff we were churning around the group chat before it came out, like the week or two before. Oh, we took out some of Sokka's sexism so that, to update it and blah, blah, blah. And it was fine. Like, I mean, I think it's weird that they said they took out Sokka's sexism and then put Suki in there just staring at him, creepily through the door as he's like getting, changed. I'm like, all right. I mean, that doesn't
my
make
issue
sense.
with that, sorry to interject, Mike, but my issue with that is like, all right, so the sexism was okay on Nickelodeon, but it's not okay on Netflix.
Right. Well, and they're like, oh, we're updating some of this.
No, bro, it's literally part of his character development, bro.
Right.
And it just, they said the same thing about...
He's not just sexist just to be sexist.
Right.
Like he's a teenage boy. Remember he had to become a man of his village at 13. Of course he's going to have these thoughts. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with him. It's just that that's the character arc. That's the character arc that he needs. That is part of his inherent character. And like to your point, Mike, about like, them turning around and just making Suki just like gawk over him. It's just like, okay, well, what you aim to do by taking out the sexism, you really didn't accomplish because you just made Suki like look at Sokka with dreamy eyes. How was that helping women's image? If it doesn't compute for me.
Very sexually charged private lesson also. But
yeah,
I do think, hey, they did a good job with Suki. I'm gonna say that. I think Suki looked great. I think she did great.
Suki looked great. I'm not gonna lie.
I did like when Sokka was trying to impress her, and then she just like one-upped him with the fan, and he's like, oh yeah. And that's where I think the actor did well. I think that he had that Sokka-ism in him. There's just so many moments like that where I'm like, how are you this close and then miss it like so clearly? And when it goes to the Katara thing, it's like, oh, we wanted to update some of the stuff to not make it as like whatever. And I'm like, part of the point of all the memes about Katara talking about her mom is that it was traumatic. And now they're arbitrarily trying to create that tension by showing them they showed that flashback too many times. They should have showed it one time. But it's like every episode they're like, hey, do you remember that thing we told you about? We gotta tell you again. It's like, everyone's watching this 8 episodes straight. Like, it's not like you put an episode out
reminded,
for 6 months. Like, what are we talking about? Like, what are we doing here? I know that they're gonna tighten some stuff up. I would hope so, but it's like there are a
I
number
think
of
so.
things that they changed that I liked. There are a number of things I really didn't like. I think like the Zuko backstory with the Blue Spirit episode was pretty dope. I think,
I like
Yeah.
that one.
and when Iroh's telling the story to the crew, and that it ends up being that they are the crew that Zuko basically saved, I think that was cool. Shift
Yeah.
that, like that.
That was a great change. That was one of those changes where it was like, you guys nailed it. Nailed
Right.
it.
But then you get to the other stuff, and I don't understand. Like, okay, Kyoshi goes into Avatar state and basically turns into Captain Marvel. Like, she's just like jumping around at the speed of light, and I'm just like, all right, like it's cool to see Kyoshi doing work, but also like, what are we doing? Like, Roku wasn't even in this season. Roku was there for like a third of an episode and was like just like hoo, 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 ah, ha, ha, ha. It was like, brother, what are we doing? I just
Yeah. When Roku started laughing like that, I was kind of like taken aback. Like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
what's?
It was
I've never seen Roku laugh before. What's going on here?
there are a number of things that way where I think they just missed. Like, I think that second episode of Umashu just didn't make sense. Like, they just dragged out the Boomy stuff. They immediately revealed, oh, I'm Boomy and you're Aang, but I'm mad at you. And I get that that's kind of the theme. Everyone's mad at the Avatar for disappearing. I'm good with that. But he just took it to a place, and I gotta say, Boomy, like a lot of people loved him. Maybe you guys loved him too, because you already disagree with me on the Aang thing. There's no disrespect to the actor, but like to me, I could tell it was a young guy in old makeup, and that just
Mhm.
like it was one of the
Yeah.
few things in the show that suspended the disbelief for me, or it took me out of the immersion, I should say. And it was just like, I get that you need a younger guy to do those stunts, but like his face makeup just looked like, I can tell you're just a guy in makeup right now. It's kind of,
Yeah.
but
Um.
I don't
I, well, I mean, Boomy was just kind of meh to me. Like, to your point, I felt like they spent a little bit too much time in Omashu, and I think they did that because they jammed Jet and his storyline into Omashu, which again, great casting. He looks just like Jet. Like as soon as he pulled up, I was like,
yeah,
that's Jet.
Yeah.
right.
I was like, this guy's way too handsome to be an extra. He's going to be Jet. That's just how they're going to do it. Um, I wish we would have got a little less Boomy and a little more Jet, like balance that out a little bit, because Jet's
Mhm.
another character that comes back later on, right? And I think you can get a lot of exposition in about the world and world building through storylines like Jet, because you get to see just how jaded people like that have become through 100 years of war, constant war,
Right.
right? And I feel like they just put him in there just to be like, hey, well, collateral damage and stuff, am I right? And it's just like, and then that was it, and then like he's gone, and I'm just like, all right,
Mhm.
that's not enough. That's not enough. And you gave us all this extra Boomy stuff where I felt like the story would have done better if you just balanced it out a little bit. If you gave us equal parts Boomy, equal parts Psy, equal parts Jet, so we get, all these different perspectives in the Earth Kingdom, in this one Earth Kingdom city, of like the different effects that 100 years of war have on these different types of people, then okay,
Right.
cool. But it just felt like they were like, all right, we're gonna focus heavily on Boomy, and we're gonna throw these other people in because we have to.
Well, how about like, oh, look, I was feeling better before we started talking. Now I'm feeling worse about it. It's like they showed the burned down forest, right?
hmm
And they use that to go into the spirit world. Okay. Now Gyatso is magically back in the spirit world, which maybe they'll justify by using parts of Legend of Korra. I'm not to spoil stuff for people. Didn't really make sense, but fine. But the whole point of that in the anime was that when Aang picks up the friggin' pine cone, which this is, I just learned this recently in science, not in science. When I was out in Washington State, a lot of forest fires. But that's how the seeds get activated to start growing again, is from fire. So while the forest is burning down, it's actually activating the pine cones there to start new growth. And that was like this deep, beautiful, like that's the depth of Avatar that you're watching as a kid. And then you watch back as an adult, you're like, dang, I needed that at 29 before I filed my taxes this year. Like, burn it all now. Like, and they just went, oh, look, the forest burned down. Here's a pine cone. Anyways, so it's like, how did you miss the whole point? It's like they forgot to like finish ideas. And they're like, oh man, we should have shot that scene again. But
I felt like they were counting on previous Avatar viewership to just like connect the dots for him. Like, hey, remember that?
Yeah.
And then just move on. But it's like, no, bro. Like, I don't just want like the Easter egg. I want you to expand on that and finish it.
Right.
Yeah, Cardell, and to that point, I think that's, kind of what we've been talking about this whole time, is that's been kind of the running theme, where I think we have most of our gripes with it is the things that we wanted them to expand on, they didn't, and the things they didn't need to expand on, they expanded on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you guys picked the wrong things to put extra focus on.
Like, I don't even really like the 41st Battalion expansion. Like, I didn't like the time that they spent on that, because I just feel like Zuko's redemption should be coming a little bit later, and you like redeeming with his troops a little too early.
I think they showed their hand too much with Zuko and Iroh early. It is clear as day that Iroh is Team Avatar, because then they're kind of using part of season 2 where Iroh and Aang are going into the tunnels before the finale, where they're both caught up and he's giving him life lessons in there. And then you got Zuko like having these emotional moments that are like, I'm so sad and like I need to be nicer, which is supposed to be revealed later. And then you've got Aang already trying to be like, man, I really wish that we were friends. I remember my friend Kuzan from the Fire Nation, and it's like, I don't know why they're like jumping the gun on some of this stuff, because now they either have to write new content to fill out the other seasons or reuse it. Like, hey, remember my friend Kuzan? And it just doesn't, it wasn't necessary. They could have expanded stuff.
No, I'm with you, Mike. I kind of felt the same way. One of the big things I felt like, especially with Iroh's character, was them giving us Lu Ten so early. Like the backstory about Lu Ten. I wish we did not get that, because again, it's like sometimes, and I'm not trying to pick on the writers, but it's like sometimes they don't understand like build up. Like you can't give us the fall of House Frey in season 2. You have to make us suffer for a little bit. Like all that. I thought the one scene they added when Iroh was in captivity, he's being transferred by those Earth Kingdom soldiers, and that guy keeps berating him about like, you have no humanity. What have you ever lost? Blah, 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 blah. And Iroh's just staring at him. And me and all of us watching, we're like, oh, dude, you have no idea. Right. You have no idea what he's given up. He's given up literally everything for this war. Right?
Right.
And I feel like, to your point, them being heavy-handed with like, not heavy-handed is the wrong word, but with him and Zuko, and with everything that you just said about Iroh, I feel like if they would have waited until season 2 to slowly build up to that stuff about like, because remember, Iroh, everywhere he goes, like no one respects Prince Zuko, but everyone respects General Iroh. He's walking around and like, oh, here comes the Dragon of the West, and you're like, this old fat man, and it's just like, this guy's a thug. Don't get it messed up, right? But like, I feel like if they just gave us bits and pieces of his backstory throughout season 1, and then in season 2, when they finally make it to Ba Sing Se, and he does that, that leaves on the vine, waterworks. But now, like we get all of this too soon before we even really have a chance to like really care that deep about Zuko and Iroh. And like you can already tell that he's an adoptive father to Zuko, and I wanted Zuko. This is going to sound terrible. As I wanted Zuko to treat Iroh a little worse in season 1, so that when they do eventually like have that embrace in book 2, book 3, it hits harder.
Yeah,
Right.
you would appreciate it more.
Right.
But
The problem to me,
if he's already just like his stepdad, basically, then I don't get that build up and that payoff to where when they have that embrace later on, I'm just like, okay, give
Right.
him a hug. It's been his
Right.
dad. Okay, whatever.
Like, guys, like listeners, if you guys have not watched the cartoon version, I'm telling you right now, when you see Tales from Ba Sing Se, you will fucking weep. I'm just telling you this now. You're gonna cry. You're going to cry. And you
I
should,
think
because it's beautiful.
I think the meta problem with the tone of this season is that they jumped the gun because they did cast well. I will say Iroh did not. He was not doing it for me in the first half of the season, and then he grew on me. But they tried too hard to establish them. Like anyone watching can tell, they're making them as part of the good guys. When you watch the original show, and I get like I already know what's going to happen, but like it is so evident that they're setting them up to flip. Whereas when you watched it originally, it was episodic and you're like, oh, look at this dumb bad guy and he's gonna okay. Well now like it's Fire Nation versus Zuko and Iroh versus Team Avatar, but Zuko is gonna get the Avatar and then flip. You really don't know. I mean, we only get Zuko on our team for the second half of the final season. It's so
Right.
few episodes.
Yeah.
And that made it like it makes you wanting more. But right now they're doing so much to try and establish like, no, Iroh's really a good man. And Zuko's really a good man. And there are good people in the Fire Nation. Like that was literally a line at one point. Not all Fire Nation people are bad. We are protesters in the Fire Nation. It's like, yeah, that's supposed to be like uncovered later. And like,
Right.
yeah, we as adults should think that and know life is not black and white and that binary. But again, I think they were just trying to bring in so much into the first season, but there was plenty of content and source material from season one to just use. And like even with the Face Stealer, they bring in lore from the comics that come after about finding Zuko's mom. That like the whole Roku having his mom's talisman or totem or whatever, and like that somehow appeases him. I'm like, what are we doing right now? Like, you set up like plot points that now can't be used later. That is literally part of the story later if they wanted to do anything with the comics. It just with Zuko, like they needed to make him more unlikable. I think they were striving to make him likable. And also, this is
you don't need to because the actor was great. I think he was a standout of all the child actors. I think he was a standout. Like you didn't need to. Yeah, you didn't need to your point, make us like him. Make us like the character. We don't have to. Like we can. Perfect example. Since we're talking about like redemption arcs, Jaime Lannister. You are supposed to hate Jaime Lannister at the beginning. Right. That's what makes his character arc so great because towards the end of the show, you're like, oh, you know what? Jaime ain't so bad. You know what I mean? And like you have this dialogue between the fans of like, of course, people are going to be like, no. Jaime's a piece of shit. And he's always going to be a piece of shit. And that's okay, right? Because like, that's good character development where he's done all these terrible things in the past. And then, you know, he kind of slowly turns into, I don't want to call Jaime a good guy, but you know, for lack of a better phrase, where like I feel
a better
like
person.
There we go. Setting the bar real fucking low for Jaime. But anyways, but like with Zuko, to your point, Mike, like I feel like in the original series when Zuko goes home and is greeted by his father and he gets all the things that he had been working for years to get. And then they have that scene at the beach where he's going through all this angst and he's like, for the better part of all of my teenage years, this is all that I've wanted. This is the only thing I've lived for. And now I have it and I'm still angry. And I don't know why. I feel like how are they going to write that character development in season 2 and season 3 when, to your point, he's already showing glimpses of, oh, he's going to be a good guy. Like
But yeah,
you're giving it away. You're giving it away too early.
Yeah, he's the reason that the 41st Battalion is still alive, because his dad was going to send them to just be cannon fodder, and he said, "No, you take them with you,
Right.
since you care about them." So, like I said, giving too much too early to where the payoff isn't going to hit as hard, and it's not going to be appreciated come late season 2, back half of season 3. So like, oh, okay, I saw that one coming 15 episodes ago.
I also think I like the flashback of him fighting the Fire Lord and the Agnikai. The fact that they tried to imply that Zuko could have landed a shot on his dad in that fight and then chose not to, bananas. I don't know why they would do
Agreed.
that.
Agreed.
Zuko,
I think that would have been a perfect way to showcase just how badass Ozai is.
Right,
Just because in the original series, to your point, Zuko is like on his knees begging, "Father, please,
Cowering.
please,
Cowering in fear.
please,
Right.
don't
That's the whole
hurt me."
Right. Well, and I think they really missed, by missing out on the memes of Avatar, they missed out on deep story. They missed out on the meme of Katara always bringing up her mom. And now, like, in a way, they're not going to be able to do that, the story justice it needs. They missed out on the meme of Zuko using the word honor every single 20 seconds. My honor, my honor. But what is that? It's not, they made it seem like Zuko needs to get back so he can be Fire Lord. That was not the whole thing. He was disgraced. He's banished. He has no honor. He's worthless. I mean, like, the whole point is he's chasing honor. And in the end, it's like, well, what is honor? Why do you think this is honor? Why do you think it's honorable just because these people say you're good now because you appease them? That's
Right.
what opens his mind to, no. What's honorable is what's good. And it's not my role to fight the Fire Lord. That's the Avatar's role. So I'm going to walk away. I don't need to do this. Redirects the lightning. But because they avoided it, because they wanted to make it a more serious show to appease a more serious audience, it just doesn't make sense. I would not recommend the live action to any of my friends that don't like that have never seen Avatar and say,
Agreed.
check this out so that you can go see the real Avatar in the anime, which is why I brought up the One Piece example earlier of, like, I think I would say to some people, hey, check out the live action One Piece. And if you like it at all, go watch the anime. With this, it's they wanted to make it its own thing, and it is, and I just don't think it's great. Like, I wouldn't say, hey, you gotta call out of work and watch this thing.
Yeah.
Because they really,
Yeah.
It almost feels like they thought they wouldn't get renewed because they pulled in so many things from other seasons that it was like, this is our only shot, and we want to make sure we get Cave of Two Lovers in there to do justice for the fans.
And that's no way to shoot a show thinking that you're not going to get a season 2, because then you get season 2 and then you're like, oh shit, we kind of blew our load in season 1. What we're going to do now? I think just make the best possible story you can make based on the source material, which the source material is already fantastic, right? So, and to your point, Mike, if you leave us wanting a little bit more, wondering where characters are going to go, that's how you get a season 2,
right?
Yeah,
not giving everything away. So, like, now we can predict what's going to happen.
Yeah,
they need to increase the humor. I think I think they tried to rip out a lot of the humor to make it darker, which I understand. But because of that, they ripped out so much personality from the characters that now they're trying to arbitrarily create new plot points, such as, my dad doesn't think I'm a good leader, so now I'm really sad about it. And meanwhile, Yue is like, I almost died at birth. I think that's a little more serious. Like, just trying to they need to inject more humor into the second season. They need to inject better writing into the second season, and just way less exposition of, like, I think we should go to the next town so that we can XYZ and then XYZ.
Right.
And then, like, one of the funniest scenes from the first season is when Zuko is looking at a map and he's like, oh my gosh, the Avatar must be a master of evasion. And it shows a little zigzag all over the map of all the places they went. And then it cuts to Team Avatar. And they're like, we have no idea where we're going.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that would have landed so well. But it's just how you write it. And
Yeah.
I'm not trying to trash the writers either. Like, but one of the biggest mysteries to me is at what point, what was the last straw that made the creators leave the show? And maybe it was that Nickelodeon was like, listen, would you rather just put all of your energy into a new animated project? And they went, yeah, I'm choosing that over this. Or did they really just get so frustrated with whatever that they left? Because I, I don't know which part would set me over the edge, but if this was my baby and they're like, yeah, and then we think that King Boomy should XYZ, like, I don't know. Like, if we get to season 3, this is where like they merged like 4 or 5 episodes into one in some parts. They better make the bloodbending episode its own 45-minute Halloween episode. That
Yes.
thing better make my skin crawl. Like,
Yes.
do it justice. But on the flip side, I just don't. They might bring up bloodbending next season. I'm surprised they didn't bring it up this season. Like, oh yeah, well, that's a cool episode. Maybe we'll just use it now. Hey, Katara, you're a bloodbender. You know, like I don't know.
Yeah, no, I got it. Oh man, no, you're right though, because that was my thought about season 2 also, as well. Was just like, yo, the bloodbending has got to be like, and again, that's probably my biggest gripe about this show, and I did enjoy it. Was some of the things they wanted to do, like when they wanted to be edgy, I felt like they should have dialed it back, and vice versa, right? Like I felt like if they just kind of flip things on its head here and there, I feel like the tone would have been perceived a lot better. Like I know we
Right.
talked about Azula briefly earlier. The actress was cool. I would have preferred not getting any Azula in season 1. I understand why they did it to everything we just mentioned about like them not sure if they're going to get a season 2. But I look at Azula in Avatar. Azula is to the Avatar world what like Joker is to Gotham City, right? I do not want or need any kind of backstory humanizing Azula. I'm perfectly fine with her just being batshit because she was born that way.
Right.
Totally okay.
And she
That's
falls
all we
apart
need.
later. It's already written, man. Like, it's there. She has a
That's
breakdown
all
at
we
the
need.
end because she's psychotic. Why are we
Because
like,
she's a psycho.
Yeah.
oh
She needs
man,
meds.
Dad won't let me leave the Fire Nation?
No.
What?
No. We don't need to humanize Azula. Not everyone needs to be humanized. And like I felt like while she did some decent face acting, and I said this to y'all before, what I want from Azula, and I can't fault her for it because this is extremely hard to do. I need Homelander levels of edge of my seat.
Right.
Like when Homelander is in any scene, we're all holding our breath because we have zero clue what he's about to do. Who's going to die? Who's he going to maim? Who's he going to insult? Who's he going to humiliate? That's what we need from Azula. When she's on the screen, I need to feel the same way like you felt when like Bane walked in on a scene. When you're like, oh shit, big dog's here. We're all terrified. And I didn't get that emotion. I didn't like that like they gave us lightning bending way too early. Like that this is supposed to be an absolutely like pioneer kind of level fire bending that she's doing.
Right.
And
She's
she
supposed to have
does
the
it in
blue
practice?
flames, and
No.
people go, blue flames, and then lightning. Do you guys? There is going all the way back to one of your first questions, Cardell. Like you asked what scenes that were cut, and I realized the one of the most egregious changes, in my opinion, and this makes me wonder: what is your favorite part and what's your least favorite part? When they cut, they didn't cut it. They changed it in the worst way. They changed Iroh yelling at Zuko into a funny quip at the end in the last episode of like, oh, what's your plan? And he's like, well, like, I don't have a plan. And then he just leaves on the boat. Whereas in the show, it's a later thing where Zuko almost freezes to death. And Iroh starts berating him. He's like, "You always do this. You never have a plan. You never figure it out." And they kind of pump fake towards that, and they go, "Yeah, we're just gonna let this be." It just doesn't make sense. Like the whole tension there was Zuko started to go, "My sister's had everything handed to her. Some people are lucky to be born, and some people are born lucky." Like all of that got ripped, and I'm like, they just wanted Iroh to be the jolly, loving grandfather figure or father figure, I guess. But it just for me, like there was no grit to Iroh at all, other than like even him fighting the slow motion of Zhao killing the friggin' moon spirit and Iroh going like what? Why? Why? I'm gonna lace up for season 2. I already got the cut. Look, the arrow's already here. You see this? That's from anger veins coming in right here.
You know, I feel like, and we're over an hour in here, but I feel like we kind of poo-pooed the show a little bit more than we initially thought we were. So I want to kind of like bring this back full circle and go with some scores. Me personally, again, decent, not great, definitely not awful. Enjoyable watch. I'd give it a solid 6.75 out of 10.
Then we're going to quarters. All right.
I felt like 6.5 was a little too low, but I'm definitely not giving it a 7. So
Yeah. I was gonna say 6.5 to 7. That would be
That's
so.
what I was gonna say.
Yep. There were so many highlights. Like there were good, bright moments, and I stand by. I think all of the problems are fixable. They are.
And I feel like the bright moments, I feel like they can build off of some of the bright moments they have, particularly like the fight scenes were very entertaining.
yeah,
Particularly at Agni Kai, like they've got a lot of good things going. They just need to polish up, clean up some of the stupid writing, and not. I feel, in my opinion, not make it so. And a lot of times, I feel like the emotion is so like one sided. It's just stoic. It's just dark. Like, bro, this was a kid show. Put a little bit more of some of those other emotional elements in there. Put a little bit more of the humor. Put a little bit more of the fun, and not just, oh my god, we got to run here because these guys are going to kill everybody on the planet.
Yeah. It's. Yeah, go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, clearly this podcast is going to blow up to over like 4 million views. So when the writers see this, we know that you can polish this stuff up. There is so much raw material to work with, and there's a lot of great opportunity. But just lean into what's working well, and don't be afraid like to step away from the stuff that didn't work in season 1. Like it's okay to let some of that stuff go. All you have to do is lean into the source material. Like Ba Sing Se, like I was blown away with some of the giant CGI sets that they did and some of the explosive scenes and things like that. That I was like, dang, they really went for it. And like they're showing like in the final war with the water tribe, or battle I should say, like people just dying. Like the wall melts and someone falls down, and I got that. I mean, it's there. Just allow some of the heart of the show to come back in. I think like the history of Avatar, they made it for kids and they went, oh, there's a lot of older people watching it. Let's, age this up a little bit. Now I think I don't even think you aged it up super successfully. I think that you tried to, and you went so stoic that just dial that back some. Like let
like
there be
at times it felt a little stiff. I think maybe in like season 2, let the material breathe a little bit. Let the actors let the actors just kind of, don't make it so rigid, right? Like to y'all's point, like it's like when they want to be stoic, it's like they're telegraphing it. You know what I mean? Just kind of like let it kind of be what it's going to be a little bit. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to be so about it. And I think that translates to some of the actors we were talking about earlier about like how we felt like some of the dialogue fell a little flat. you gotta kind of let the actors do their thing and not make it seem like they're just reading off lines because it's time for the Avatar to be stoic, or it's time for Katara to say something motivational for Team Avatar. It's just like,
Right.
they're kids. Let them be
riff.
kids. Let them
Yes.
mess up. Let them
Mhm.
just kind of figure it out. Like, they have no fucking idea what they're doing, guys. Let's not
Right.
forget, Aang is 12, and the whole world is asking him, "Save us."
And then I want to run away and be a kid for a day. Like,
Right.
I'm telling you, I have so much confidence in the cast because I've seen these behind the scene little like reads, and they're giving each other crap and like laughing at each other and poking fun. Katara has so much. Like, I don't know the woman's actress, but she has so much personality. Like in these interviews, and she knows the lore. Like she dropped so many spoilers about the comics. She's like, "Oh, this was a nod," and just recites the entire comic. I was like, "Dang, I hope nobody sees this that cares," But like they care about this material, and I'm not going to say the writers don't. Part of me wonders if they're like, oh, like we don't even know if this is going to get made because the timing. This was announced like 6 years ago. Like if you see what the actors when they got cast looked like they looked like little kids. And it took so long. It's like I think they could have saved so much budget if they didn't try to do so much scale in some of the battles and just leaned into some of those like simple dialogue scenes where you get to see them be goofy and laugh and hang out. And they added some of that, but it's like just let the cast be. Like Aang's actor has so much personality. Sokka's actor seems even more like Sokka in real life. Like there's a clip of them hanging out and he's giving Zuko's actor all this crap. I'm like, it's all there. Like you've got it. It's like the Eagles. Like they've got all these components for the team. Like so why are you messing this up? I don't know if you need another coach. I don't know if you need a new coordinator, but you're wasting talent right now. You only have 2 seasons. And you better cast The Rock as the boulder.
And they have to nail the Toph casting.
Yeah.
You have to nail that. Whoever was your casting person for season 1, make sure they come back, because if you don't get the Toph casting, if you pull a May or Ty Lee kind of casting,
who never get named, by the way. I don't know if you guys know.
Like we know who they are, like the people who have seen the original series, and I was just like, I could have done without them in season 1, but
like they better have Toph going, it's over there, and they're like, where? And then she's like, like you've got to have those Avatar moments, or what's the point? Like
Cardell, you got any final thoughts before we get out of here? Before we wrap this up?
Only that I just found it interesting that Mike had so much critiques for a show that was much better than Yu Yu Hakusho.
That tells you how bad Yu Yu Hakusho was.
That is true.
You know what's crazy? I will make the argument. I think I liked Yu Yu Hakusho the most out of our friend group, though. I think I see redeeming qualities in the live action.
No, you don't.
I mean it. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Listen, I do not have the time or the energy to rehash a discussion about that show.
No, we'll do that in therapy together another day.
Well,
I do. I have so many critiques
pay for this session.
You do for you because you care so much about it. It's like it could have been so much better.
Yeah. But, well, I gotta say, Mike, before like the night before it like went live on Netflix, I thought about you, and I was like, man, I know what it's like to have my baby be absolutely butchered, and I think just based off the trailer alone, we knew this was going to be light years better than Yu Yu Hakusho. It's just
right.
We knew that just off of. I was like, they put way too much money into the set pieces for this to be anything close to that. But so I thought about you, man. I did not want you to experience the pain that we experienced. I can't see that. But
I'm naming these critiques because I can hold those things in tension. Like I enjoyed it. Like to be very clear, like I laughed. I got a little teary-eyed in a few. I'm a sensitive person. I got a little teary-eyed in a few parts. Like they nailed some of that, and the music 10 out of 10. They nailed bringing back music and themes and stuff.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of room for improvement, and that's all right. Listen, I will be there for all 3 seasons.
Sure will.
Good, bad, ugly. If nothing else, than to say anyone in their right mind comparing this and saying it's as bad or close to as bad as the Shyamalan movie, like you should not be able to vote in any election that's ever existed. Like,
yeah, you're just being kind of a
you're just a
sensationalist.
hater.
Like,
You're just being
let's not be
contrarian.
ridiculous, guys. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
did myself the service of not watching the M. Night Shyamalan version. So,
Well, if you ever want to hate your life, just know that it did more damage to Avatar than the live action Yu Yu Hakusho did to the anime community. So
find that hard to believe because they remade the Avatar one, but I'll let you cook.
Yeah, they'll never touch Yu Yu Hakusho again.
Yeah, that's never get another live action.
yeah, spirit bombed into oblivion.
Well,
Okay.
guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us. I know we went a long time here, but there was a lot to cover. We will definitely be back to cover future Avatar projects. Both the original creators, I know they got their Avatar studios up and running. They're making a animated movie. I'm excited to see Grown Up Team Avatar Aang.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very interested to see where their story goes kind of after Ozai gets his shit pushed in. But yeah, I mean, guys, if you guys have only seen the live action, have not seen a cartoon, do yourself a favor. Get on Netflix. It's on Netflix right now. 10 episodes a season, or I'm sorry, 20 episodes a season, about 20 minutes a piece. It's an easy watch. I think you guys will really, 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 really enjoy it.
Change your life.
It's up there in discussion for one of the GOAT anime of all time, and it's like that. It's like that. But let us know what you guys thought in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow us. Would love to hear any theories you guys have for season 2. But guys, it's been a pleasure, Mike. I've been trying to get you on the pod for what feels like months now, so I'm glad we're able to do this. Cardell, it's a pleasure as always. All right, we'll catch y'all next time.
Peace.
Take care.